Okay, we're now live. Welcome everyone to the Recruiters Hangout show. Welcome back. I've returned from Spain, straight back on with it. We are joined today by a good selection of guests. Christina's hopefully joining us later from the Needle as well. The theme is Recruitment Technology Revolution, just around the corner, or more of the same. So we've discussed the topic a few times, Alan, in the past, haven't we? So it'd be interesting to see if anything new comes up, if anything has really changed in recruitment technology, and we'll go from there. If you want to join the conversation, as always, tweet Rechangout, join on Twitter, or join us on Webinar Jam. So if you've signed up, you'll be able to see the chat on the right-hand side of your screen. Comment in there, ask any questions, any comments you have, you're very welcome, and we'll pass them on. Rec Hangout is sponsored by Colleague Software. I'm Louis Welcomme, and hopefully I'll have something to say today, being from a recruitment technology company. We're hosted by Alan Whitford, excellent host from AdTech Partnership and RC Euro, who supports the show. Mark Stevens from Smart Recruit Online can't make it today, but as always, they're one of our great supporters. And Louise is here from UK Recruiter, keeping an eye on your Twitter comments on the hashtag RecHangout. Our guests are today Claire Bush from Broadbean. Welcome back, Claire, regular on the show. I've also got Jack here, Jack Parsons. Jack's doing loads of stuff, so we'll hear from Jack in a minute, but his company's recruitmentjack.com and Yourfeed, and you'll tell us a bit more in a minute, Jack, I'm sure. So, Alan, over to you.
Thank you, Louis, and welcome everybody. This should be fun. Recruitment Technology Revolution, just around the corner, more of the same. We've had that conversation ever since I've been in recruitment technology, for the last 15 years. We always think that whatever we've done today is it. We've changed the world. It's a technology revolution, and yet some of it does seem like it's just more of the same. And I think it's going to be interesting to get some feedback from Jack on that as he's building a new technology. Shame we've lost Stephen, because he's been talking about new approaches to assessment tools, but hopefully we'll join in with him again later. And Lou, we do have another missing guest, Christine. I forgot already what it is that she's going to talk about when she joins us.
Video technology.
Video, that would be the one, yeah. The other new technology that's been around for 10 years, but does continue to evolve. So, guys, I'd like to let you introduce yourselves a little bit first. Claire, Broadbean, and Claire, who are you? What do you do? Anything to do with technology?
Yeah, a little bit of one. So Broadbean is I suppose traditionally we're a multi-posting technology that sits in what I like to call the epicenter of the recruitment technology world. We join up our clients, so recruitment agencies and recruiters in-house, with the job boards and their applicant tracking systems and CRMs, basically to give them that sort of 360 usability. But from a technology platform, over the recent years, we have been working on what we kind of call our sort of bread and butter technology and innovation around big data products. So we've recently brought a big data analytics suite to market, and we're working on lots of other data products as I speak to you now. My role is marketing director for EMEA, so I cover off all of the different market sectors between here and APAC, and basically, yeah, try and make sense of the products that we're putting out for our clients to make sure that they can see and understand the visibility, how impactful these technologies are going to be for them.
Brilliant, Claire, and it's a shame we're not able to show that technology a bit today. When you guys originally built the dashboard with Pepsi, it just blew people away how much information is actually available and how you can run your business with it, certainly the recruiting side of your business. So looking forward to talking a bit more about that. Jack, welcome to the show. First timer, a newbie, and relatively new, only 3 years or so in the recruitment industry, but you've already building some technology. So tell people what you're about.
Yes, so additional recruitment. So I've got a company called Recruitment Jack, your standard recruitment agency. But at the moment, we're building a new platform called Yourfeed. So it is your feed. You control the feed, and everything's going to be relevant. So from job matching to that candidate, it's going to tell you where to go and why to go to that article, that piece of content, that job post. Is going to match everything. It's going to give you a reason why you should match that person. It's going to give you a reason why you should match that job description. It's going to give you a reason why you should read that bit of content or watch that video. So
okay, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, so it's a bit like, it's an algorithm that we've put in place. It's taken us 4 months, a bit like Google's algorithm, where it searches billions of websites like a spider, goes in, searches all the websites. So this will basically take all your social platforms and draw every bit of information within that platform, put it into a nice little algorithm for you, and say, right, you need to look at this, this, and this. So that's what it's going to do.
So it sounds like, in your view, the technology revolution is not only around the corner; it's pretty much coming down the street.
Yeah, look what's happening with the taxi world and Uber with the technology. Same with eBay and Argos. That's your marketplace where you go now. Same with Uber, and I think there's Broadbean are doing brilliantly with what they're doing, and I think there's a niche in the market to take it in, and no one wants to be going to certain websites for this, this, and this. They want it all in one place, and they want ease.
All right. So Louis, as an ATS CRM provider, does that threaten you? Does that improve what you might be able to do? How do you view that, Louis?
Well, no, it doesn't. Any new technology doesn't threaten the CRM, because the CRM is just meant to be at the center of these new technologies. CRM can't do everything. It's meant to be a place where you can analyze your data, get useful information, and plug in different tools. So we're working at the moment on a 360 integration with Broadbean. We try and talk to everyone. I'm always finding out little tools, meeting new people, and then shoving them at our four developers who have to go, whoa, we have to do this one at a time. But it's essential that a CRM works with multiple technologies, doesn't try to do everything. And changes with the time. But what I'm interested to talk about here is how changes in technology are affected by changes in recruitment. And what we've been hearing for the last few years is that recruitment itself is going to change. And recruiters, agencies are under threat because it's so easy to connect with people online. It's so easy for anyone to go and form relationships online without a middleman. It's easier than ever before to find people online. So there's a threat there to recruitment agencies. And then you look at the database. What value is a database? What value does a colleague actually provide to people or Bullhorn in terms of the data? Because all those people are online. All those people can be found online. So the value now, well, the question now to technology providers like us, like other CRMs, is what we're actually adding to recruitment agencies. And the question for recruitment agencies is, how do they actually help their clients and candidates? What are they actually offering, and how can technology help them add value?
I started I had a presentation earlier on this week up in Birmingham, and I started looking at it from a marketing perspective, and my background in recruitment agencies and trying to figure out the sort of consumer journey now, if you like, and applying what I know in the marketing world as the digital consumer journey with the traditional marketing techniques that agencies employ to kind of get their jobs in front of candidates. And to your point, Louis, as well, the CRM definitely focuses and features in that journey still, but I think there's a whole conversation that also brings in technology as well. We've got so many different channels now, so many different touch points, not just in recruitment but in life generally, that I think businesses need to understand that there's a whole different world in which people come across your business. And if you're a recruitment agency trying to still make placements and cut through the noise and resonate with a job seeker, you've got to be able to use not only your technology that you have in place right now, but also embrace the new technologies or new channels, similar to what Jack was talking about. He's creating a new way of connecting people. But once you've got all of those visible, if you've got all of those channels in front of you, you still then need to figure out, how do we use them? How best can you have that conversation? And not just to the point of engagement, but then using your data, your CRM, your applicant tracking data, every bit of data that you have within that business, to move that engagement piece on to create a relationship that's longer lasting, because I think that's the fundamental point of recruitment, right, is that we develop relationships for the long term, and we use technology to do that. And there's so much out there, so it's trying to, I think from my point, it's trying to figure out what are the best channels to use, how do you use them, and what do you use them in conjunction with to get to your end goal.
Okay, Claire. So, and I agree, and that's a perfect way of looking at it. That hey, recruitment is marketing, it's sales. It's not just, hopefully, it's not just filling the job. But in a presentation I did last week, I'm still using a slide from 17 years ago. You know, a couple slides, which is pretty scary to me. That I thought we'd fix this stuff 17 years ago with the technology company I was running at the time. And all we actually did.
Al and I had a slide up from my dissertation that I wrote 20 years ago based on relationship marketing before there was social media. I think I'd only just got used to emailing my boyfriend over at another university.
Right. Now, of course, everybody's supposed to comment, Claire, that you and I couldn't possibly have done this stuff 17 or 20 years ago, obviously, because we were still in shorts.
That's when I was born.
Okay, Jack.
And Jack's the new technology. But the point around that is that recruitment itself, and I'll come back to Louis why you think it's going to change. Recruitment hasn't changed in the sense that it's like any sales or marketing campaign. We identify a need, we figure out what our message is about that need, we figure out the platform we're going to distribute that message on, we manage the response, and we make our selection. And whether we were putting a sign in the window of a saloon in 1827, or in fact, when I talked to the audience last week, a couple of them in retail, they're still just putting signs in their windows. And that is the most basic approach that they need to have, and they need someone to walk in the door, fill out an application form, and start work on Monday. So some of the technology may have changed, and they may have a central repository at head office for those jobs, but right there on the high street, I just need people to come to work. And their methodology hasn't changed. So recruitment, in one sense, hasn't changed. What has changed is our tools, our communications channels, our ability to grab data like Jack is talking about. In fact, Jack, one of our viewers wants to know how you compare Yourfeed with open source Elasticsearch. I'll let you come back to that. So if recruitment hasn't changed, just technology keeps evolving, why don't we just go back to our pen and paper and do it the old way? Anybody want to jump on that one?
I think
Jack, you're building new kit.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that from my perspective, it's so much faster in terms of this. The data's there, the information's there, and why not use it? If it's creating faster connections, we now work at 1,000,000 miles an hour as well as just basically trying to deliver 1,000,000 miles an hour. We've got the tools to help us to do that. So, yeah, I think it's because we're now used to working with them. Jack, you were born with all of these systems in place, right?
Smarter and not harder, and there's so many competitors out there. How many education agencies are there out there? How many admin agencies? You've got so much to compete with. These smaller agencies need to embrace the technology to keep up with these Adecos and these Hayes and these Michael Pages. They need to embrace the technology. For instance, I'll give you an example. Broadbean, you can multi-post so quickly via the Broadbean service on CV Library, Indeed. If you've got 2 consultants doing that in a small organisation, and then you've got someone like Hayes that have got 5,000, obviously when you search online, you're just going to keep seeing Hayes and Hayes and Hayes and Hayes. So how are these little mediocre companies going to put a voice out there? And it's technology that will do that. It is technology, social media. It's not, oh, I've got the biggest marketing budget, so I can do this, this, and this. The technology is giving these newbies and these smaller organisations a voice, and that's so important with technology, and that's why recruitment will change. It's not going to change because the technology's out there. It's just that the big players are going to find it more difficult because you've got the percentage from the other ones saying, hold on a minute, yeah, I'm a 5-man band here, but we're niche in what we do, and we've got the technology, just like you've got the technology, because we both can afford it to take it to the next level. So that's what's going to change.
Yeah, there's an excellent opportunity for specialist recruitment agencies here to outflank their competitors using this technology and using the knowledge in their databases to provide additional value, whether that be portals their clients and candidates can log into to get access to specialist knowledge and content and jobs on the side. But the trick is here is, how do recruiters talk to candidates, or let's say, how do recruiters talk to people without selling to them straight away? Because not every company is recruiting and not every person's looking for a job, and that's where technology can help. But it needs the right attitude. We can, with the right technology, can help people, help recruiters provide content, build their networks, have conversations online quickly and authentically, authentically isn't that a cliche word, engage people. They can engage people online easily than ever before, and it's not that difficult to do. The problem with recruitment technology is a lot of all these different tools and non-recruitment tools as well, all the social tools and sharing tools, aren't talking to one another, and a lot of that comes down to the CRMs, I'm afraid, not plugging into everything, and the recruiters not demanding what needs to be done by technology companies. So we need to be braver, and we've discussed this before, Alan. We need to be braver and actually move beyond the idea of a database just being a database, and start to think about relationships and adding value and how helping recruiters do their jobs better, rather than just being an administrative tool. So sorry, rant.
No. Well, but you're right about the integration, and don't get me started on HR XML or HR Open Standard as it's called now, because it's the deafening silence of most CRMs to actually embrace that as the integration tool is I still can't quite understand. Instead we're much more about, okay, give me $4,000 and I'll deliver my API for you, Mr. Job Board, or whatever it might be. So you're right. I think the integration is a challenge. It's going to be people like Jack or others that build other tools that go out and scrape all the data and bring it together. And when that happens, as a CRM provider or as a data analytics provider like Broadbean, we could run the risk of potentially losing control of our own data. And that, to me, I think is a challenge for the tech providers. How are you going to keep control of what you've essentially invested a lot of money in building? And for the end client, right? Claire, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Alan. I was just going to interject there. Sorry, I have a terrible habit of interrupting. But I think it's more fundamental in that, the technology business is out here, and certainly from Broadbean's perspective, we don't build technology to own the data. We build the technology to make that process better and add value for the end user, so for our clients. So our kind of, I suppose, our reason for product development is because there's a need to join, there's a need to integrate, and typically our business over the last 2 years has focused solely on our integration. So we've looked at all of the best of breed ATS providers out there and all of the CRMs, particularly what our clients are using, and building feeds based on their needs, not building it because we know that if we do spend 3 to 5 weeks building that feed out, we're going to get X percentage more in terms of the data that we've got coming in, or we've got an increase in tracking applications for hairdressing recruiters, for example. It's not built like that. We don't focus like that. We do it because of the need, and the data that we're able to, I suppose, put a window over a certain snapshot moment in time is the client's data. It's the candidate's data. The ownership, I think we've been getting tied up in the ownership of data for so long. We spend years almost arguing over, and actually it's a moot point. It's not about the ownership of data. If people didn't want their information out there, they shouldn't put it out there in the first place. If you're applying for a job, you need to know and understand that you're putting your personal details up on a job board. That job board will then use that data to mine effectively and also encourage other people just like you to come and put their CV on. So it's like, I think we're in a world where we're much more smarter than we take credit for, and I actually think that if we get hung up over the old questions, we're not going to be progressing the new innovations and the new joining up and the solutions that could, kind of almost triple our speed of connecting. And the point is that all of this technology and all of these systems channels are there to increase our ability to connect. And that's what we want. That's what we want as job seekers. That's what we want as business professionals. That's what we want as recruiters. That's what we want as ATS and CRM providers.
I agree, yeah. Do you think the data in front of people are being used correctly? Say, for instance, you've got a recruitment agency, you've got 200 consultants, and they're on job boards and they're on LinkedIn trying to going through all this data. But why don't they start with their personal Facebooks? Why don't they start with their Twitters? Imagine if every recruiter started with what they've already got. It makes me crazy. I obviously worked for a recruitment agency for 3 years, and you spend so much money on this CV library or Read, and I'm going to name them because that's what everyone uses. But why don't you just bring it back a notch? Use a bit of technology that can actually draw through your personal connections that you've already got.
I think it's a great point, Jack, and I think I kind of had a meeting earlier on. I'm putting a presentation together for our corporate sales division, and they're going to be talking about the big data and our big data product. But essentially what you've got is an industry that is worth so much, but actually every recruiter that you speak to didn't come into recruiting because they've got a background in analytics. They came into recruitment because they've got a background in people, and they love that connection. But you're trying to take a recruiter who's got a really great ability with people, can connect and engage, put them on a path and trained well, and using the tools that they've got available can be awesome. But you then start telling them they've got to literally change their process. And for a lot of the recruiters I know, I've worked in the industry now for 10 years, but the recruiters I know have their set patterns, and they're used to working in the areas that they're working in, especially the niche recruiters. They know what works. It's a honed pattern, if you like. It's the same as you would always go to the same shelf in the same supermarket to get the same hair brand or whatever it is that you dye your hair with. But if the shop constantly moves around, you're going to have to figure out a new journey, right?
Yeah,
and what we're not doing as technology providers is we're not providing them with a new route. We're not giving them enough visibility on the new options available to them. So one of my key roles, if you like, is to make sure that in-house recruiters understand all of the technologies that are available to them. And it's a difficult job, because how do you start? We've been operational for 13 years. We've got a technology that everybody kind of assumes they know that we're just a multi-posting, but they don't need multi-posting in their life. Actually, they do, but they're just not using it in the right way. It's going back to that point of recruiters don't necessarily use the tools in the best way. And I'd say that there's a very high percentage, over 50% of our clients, that don't use Broadbean in the best way. They don't get as much value out of it as the product can allow them to, just because they need to kind of come back and look at their workflow and look at the process, look at their training, look at their resourcing, and look at other technologies that they'd use in conjunction with ours to get the most out of it. So yeah, I think it's a continued education. So kind of going back to the point of this Hangout, I think the recruitment technology in a revolution is happening for a very small minority of people who are hungry for that information and want and go out and seek the new technologies and new platforms and new ways of doing things and try them. And if they don't work, then keep looking, but you've always got a foundation that did work.
Well, I think you're right, Claire, and it's an interesting point, because if I can look back at the technology platforms that I first put in 15 years ago, there are still technology providers today that don't do what we did then, and there are users today that still don't use what they have, even more than 10%. When I talk at a session, I ask people about, and I did last week, okay, how many of you got a candidate database? And most of these in-house, talent managers, recruitment managers, they've got something. They've got, a corporate ATS. How many of you use the database? 1 out of 50 in the room actually use their existing database. And they just didn't even, and one said to me, well, this technology doesn't allow me to do all of that sort of stuff. Well, I've been in the back end of that system a lot in my life, and I said, no, it does all of that and more. You've just never asked your provider what it can do, or you haven't gotten that training back and that recurrent training. And I think that's a challenge for us as tech users, is we need to demand more from our providers, but we need to know, you know what we don't know. And I think that's a big gap in that, you know, you've got some great stuff. And I mean, from the very first day that Dan started with Broadbean, it was always going to be about the data. Nobody understood that then, and I think there's probably a huge number that still don't understand it today, which is really a shame. We'd like to do a bit of a reset, Louis. We have another guest that has joined us. Christine, how are you?
Hello, Alan. I'm good, thank you. How is everybody? Sorry for my lateness.
Great. Glad you made it through the. Christine, we're just schmoozing about the technology revolution. Is it here? Is it around the corner? And we just have this as a conversation, and we've been having some pretty good debate so far. But why don't you tell the audience who you are and what your new around the corner it's here video technology is?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, my name's Christine Tautari. I'm a co-founder and director of a company called The Needle, and we provide asynchronous video interviewing services to recruiters out in the marketplace. So we're providing for agency and in-house recruiters, and it was an interesting topic to choose, because for me, I think rather than a revolution, I'm finding it more like an evolution. It's a lot slower than what you think it is. You know, like all of actually just coming on off the back of the last conversation, which was all about, you know, people still not using their applicant tracking system even today. ATSs have been around for, well, going on a couple of decades, I guess. And if you look at video interviewing technology, it has. I think it's actually come on quite quickly, but it's still, people are still getting to grips with the concept. So I imagine that any technology that, you know, is coming into, say, the recruitment industry per se, tends to take its time, because it involves change, and change takes a while for people to grasp the concept of, and there's a lot of resistance to change. So I think, you know, looking at it as being just the same, just much of a muchness around the corner, I really do think it's more of an evolution, and it's a slower change that happens. So that was something that really struck me with video. Plus, with video interviewing, I think there are a lot of other technologies involved with video that's actually helped it along its way. Better internet connections, better equipment, of course, you know, better webcams, better microphones. So all of that stuff has started to morph and change and improve, which has actually in turn helped video come into play as an easier option for people. And also it's more accessible to everybody. So I think, you know, there are a lot of things changing that are actually helping some of the technologies come into play, particularly browser-based solutions.
Well, thank you, Christine. I think you're right. I mean, the first video interviewing platform I remember was 15 or so years ago, for a guy out here in Cheltenham, near where I live. But his problem was the internet connectivity.
Yeah.
You know, you needed a pipe about this big in order to actually, you know, have the video actually work. And today we're doing what we're doing. We got half a dozen people on a live video broadcast.
Exactly.
You know, totally. Yeah. Who would have thought about that even 3 years ago, that this was something we could just do?
Yeah.
Even where I am, where I have a 1 meg connection, so.
Okay.
But isn't it? Yeah, and it's sort of working. But isn't it then? And I think for all of us, the theme isn't necessarily all of the new cool tech, but how do we actually get our users, whether they're the candidates or the recruiters, to actually use what they've got to a better advantage?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of hard work. Has to be said. I'm sure everybody on the call today knows how much hard work it is to bring a new concept to market and then actually get people to use it. The urgency I've seen for recruitment agencies, particularly in the last few months even, is the fact that the employers are actually asking it of them now. And I think there is, you know, once that urgency starts to happen, where an employer says, well, if you're going to supply us recruitment services, we also want you to supply video. Now that's a very different prospect for all those recruitment agencies who are actually now having to, well, we're actually fielding phone calls from them saying, okay, we feel we need to actually get to grips with this now because we're being forced to do it. So I think there is a natural push towards using technology also from a cost reduction exercise. I mean, a lot of companies have come out of the recession with still cost reduction in mind. The bottom line's really in mind. They don't want to go back to being what they were before. So they need to keep in mind that they want to do things more efficiently. And I think from a business case perspective, if you're looking at selling in a concept of a new technology that's actually going to help them achieve that, then that's also quite a big motivator for a lot of companies. I don't know what everyone else thinks, but...
No, I agree with you, Christine. So we just did another presentation with the stat where the recruitment marketplace last year to this year was worth, what, 26 billion? And the projections are to grow to, I think, around 30 billion from 2015 to 2016. So if that's the case, if that's where our industry's at, and recruitment agencies make up, obviously, the bulk of that in terms of the value, then they need to be able to adopt with the times. And the pressure that in-house recruiters, I mean, certainly as well from my perspective, I've seen so much more embraced kind of workflow changes and change management are happening effectively in in-house recruitment, more so than it's ever happened outside in agencies. But that pressure is now building to such an extent that they can't, that recruiters just can't afford to ignore the fact that they're almost their counterparts, and also their clients are expecting more of them to be more effective, to be more efficient, and to be faster to that candidate. We also talk about time to hire to be zero, and if you can, as an agency, look at what you've got internally, look at your data, and kind of go back to your point, Jack. If you turn the recruitment process on its head as an agency and look at your CRM and take a really good kind of audit, if you like, of what information you've got there, the chances are you've probably got some seriously great connections in there, enough to fuel your business for the next 6 to 12 months, because the engagement factor is already there. You don't really need to reinvest in collecting those those CVs. You've probably already got those relationships started. So it's about, I think, using the technology, thinking about it in terms of your space within the market, and creating that as your USP, really honing in on that, and developing your USP around your specialism, the data that you've got, and the technology that you've got in place.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually found also that a lot of in-house recruiters are fairly stretched in terms of their resource, and it's come about because companies have built internal teams, and they've started from somewhere. I think the teams potentially may need to be bigger, because they're managing like hundreds and hundreds of jobs, which can't be effective. So they're looking towards technology to do more with less, basically, but to keep the quality up. And I think they're all looking at employee engagement now as an example of something that's really important now, employer branding. So technology, there are technologies around that can help them actually achieve that now, but they have to do it because they don't have enough people in the teams to manage it from a human scale. So technology's got to kick in somewhere, and I think that's been a major challenge for the internal recruiters that I've seen so far. And a lot of them are looking to video,
It's a major challenge for marketing teams as well.
Yeah.
I think also I don't think it's changing the recruiter's way of thinking. I think it's changing that founder, that CEO. Most of these CEOs, they did recruitment 20 years ago, and they're used to picking up the phone, not having no technology. So that's what they're not going to try and kill something that's working. So it's not educating new recruiters or recruiters that's been within the industry for 5 years. It's educating those that are now founders or CEOs or managing directors of businesses. They did it one way. Why would they want to change? It worked for them. It worked for me, and that what process I want to put in place for the rest of the business. So it's educating educating managing directors and CEOs who didn't have technology more than those newer consultants, I believe.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've spoken to a lot of recruitment agency owners who, are in exactly that same position, and they tend to look at it as ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same as the value piece. So the
Yeah.
value of the market sits with 13 recruitment agencies. And it's kind of like the 80-20 rule. If you think about the 20% of the agencies that equate to so much of that value in this industry, that's where our problem lies as technology providers. We've got a real closed door because, like you say, Jack, they don't want to fix what's not broken for them. But the industry is growing at such a pace that it will be the smaller, more agile agencies and recruiters that harness the technology, the platform, the workplace, but also as well that kind of they really listen to the job seekers. And you can't do that through layers of bureaucracy and, fundamental hierarchies of the monolith agencies that are out there, who I do like, by the way, because they are our clients, but it's hard for them to change, right?
I'm going to interrupt just to do a quick reset here, because this is just going flowingly and you're making my job easy because I don't have to do anything. But just for our audience out here, this is Rechangout, hashtag Rechangout, where we're talking about recruitment technology, the revolution as it hears it around the corner. With Claire, Jack, and Christine, and Louis chipping in now and again. We've really covered quite a bit about where technology is. There's some new stuff here, which is kind of neat, that Jack's building, and Christine's got a newer version. And I'm glad you said asynchronous, Christine, because that's not an easy word to say, and I'm sure most of our audience is busily looking it up to find out what that means. But we've also had some good conversation going on in Webinar Jam with our audience. In fact, they don't seem to need us either, because they've got a good debate going with themselves, with Simon, John, Connor, and others. But one thing that does keep coming back, and Claire, you just alluded to it there near the end, is we seem to forget in all of this, and I think, Jack, it is going to go to some of the work you're doing now, is about the candidate. We keep forgetting that the candidate isn't just a piece of data. No. The candidate is a real person, and the candidate doesn't want to be in our process, doesn't want to be in our database. They want to have a job. And one of the questions we had, Jack, was, are we going to head towards the point where the candidate actually brings their own data to the company and says, this is what I'm about and what I do, let's find the right job for me in the company, instead of going the other way around. And do you think what you're doing with your sort of aggregation play, is that going to help candidates maybe change recruitment from their side rather than us do it from our side?
100%. We've not got a USP for companies. We've got our USP for candidates. It's like, for instance, I always say, you've got a sweet shop, but if you've got no stock on the shelf, you can't open. So the platform that we're creating at the moment, it's all going to be about marketing yourself. A company's got a marketing team, they PR themselves. Why can't a candidate do that with their data themselves? So the platform put in place will just help them, guide them along as like a career coach, and help them where to go. So say, for instance, I'm a marketing manager. What company do I go to? Where do I look? Where do I start? There's so many different companies out there. Put your data into our system, put it onto our portfolio, your own portfolio where you can showcase yourself, and we will do that. With that piece of technology, we will do that work for you and guide you in the right way. So it's working smarter and not harder. So yeah, I personally don't think agencies will have any issues with temporary recruitment, no matter how big the technology in recruitment gets. But the permanent recruitment, they're going to start finding, even now, it's just going to go down the value for agencies and up for the technologies, I believe.
Yeah. So Louis, word you said on this is the data that that you use with your clients and the other CRMs use with their clients is much more about, it's our jobs and we're trying to find somebody to map the job. Are any of your clients going the other way around and really saying, hey, we've got some great candidate information, how can we help the candidate go find jobs?
Well, I think a lot of the agencies can start, like we said earlier, with the data in their CRMs to actually offer more to candidates and start mapping markets, start creating salary reports, start giving them access to data, valuable information that they might want or they might want to get even if they're not looking for a job at the time, and using technology to help recruiters start to predict when candidates might be looking for a job. So they're not just a person in your process, they become someone in your network that individually recruiters can start to build relationships with, engage with, and add value to, and in turn approach when the time is right, which comes back down to a sort of inbound marketing. I suppose I'd say all this because I'm a marketing person. It's an inbound marketing approach, it's an inbound recruitment approach. And I think the CRM's in a perfect position in the middle to start doing this. I don't think technology is going to replace the recruiter or completely, because someone needs to form the relationship. I turn up to the event and they know me. They don't know the technology that I was using. So that sounded very egotistical, but it's the same, isn't it, Claire? Where we meet online first. 4 years ago when I started, I got to know people on Twitter, on Google Plus, via this. So
they're just channels. That's the point. They're the vehicle for the conversation, and the conversation is personal. It's about having that direct connection, and whether it is virtual or if it is just on an application perspective, it doesn't matter that there's not a face to that. And also, I think that's one of the beauties, I suppose, of recruiting in the UK is that we don't insist on having photos or video to support our CVs, because you've got that level of anonymity, and it's up to the individuals to continue that conversation and connect where it's relevant. I think what's really beautiful about the way that Jack's coming at it is that I talk a lot at the moment around this, forget the B2B and B2C communications from a marketing perspective, human to human. And I think the way that we can probably help recruiters to basically bring that forward is by educating them on the communication styles that they've now been used to outside of the job. Most people now have smartphones. Most people have got a Facebook account, whether they use it for work or not. They're on social media channels. I've got 2 girls who work for me in the team, and they're Snapchatting every minute of the day. And it's part and parcel of what we do now as a team. Our communication channels, our networks, our social communities, we all have different ways in which we interact with them. None of it is less valid than the other. It's just that I can measure most of them through one central inbound marketing tool, which is brilliant because I can put, almost for my marketing messages, I can plug a message out across multiple channels all at the same time. So I think as long as we leave it down to the individuals and we kind of say, it's up to you, however you want to converse with us, we as recruiters will talk to you back, and we are educated in the way that those channels work, then that's great.
I think the problem is, though, Claire, it's still the technology on the agency side is still too complicated for them.
Well, most of the agencies I worked at didn't even allow to have internet surfing availability for their recruiters. So, and that was only 3 years ago I left agency, and it's remarkable, absolutely remarkable that still, and it's like Jack says, you have to go and educate those recruiters that are now the leaders of their business, and they need to understand the benefits of enabling their recruiters to use these platforms and technologies.
But some of that comes back to Jack's point earlier about why don't recruiters use their own Facebook or their LinkedIn or their Google Plus or their other own personal network more. Some of it is because their companies block them from using that. And in that event I spoke at last week, over half the people in the room were not allowed to access Facebook from their office. Yeah. And Andy's just giving his presentation on how you can use Facebook and Google Plus, and they're going, that's great, except we can't get to that. In the recruitment agency world, our big fear, if you think about the theme in conferences, say 2 years ago, was whose data is it? Is it my data, as in I'm the recruiter, or is it your data, you're the agency owner? And I think that line has gotten pretty strongly blurred. But Jack, that's one of the reasons I think a lot of recruiters don't use that personal thing, at least not when they're in the building, because it is their data. They don't necessarily want the agency owner to have it. So we have moved on from the days we used to all just go copy 150 CVs and take them home at night and go, they're now my CVs. I think we have. Exactly. Top right-hand drawer, that's the spot.
But I would say there is the recruiter and and the agency, they both have the same goal at the end of the day. So they just need to communicate together, work as a team. Both want to make the money, both want to make the placement, both want to do well for themselves. So if they're going to go down the situation of whose data is this, I think then they've got an internal issue themselves, and let alone worrying about all the other external issues. Me as a recruiter, personally, that data is anyone's, whether it's on my Facebook or someone else's Facebook. I can go on Google and search anyone on Facebook anyway, without even being a friend of them. So I think it's more of the concept of, you know what, let's all work together, work smarter and not harder.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I used to work for Hayes Recruitment sort of for about 6 years, and there is a legacy mentality that goes along with recruitment in general, which is treat them mean and keep them keen. Do not let them don't let them fly too far from the roost, because all hell can break loose. And Jack, you're absolutely right. Data is now anyone's data, because you can get anything from anywhere pretty much now. So I think people have to change their approach to it and actually start looking at what sort of quality service, what sort of value they can add to the service that they're offering their clients. Forget about data for a minute, because you can get hold of it. You can search on LinkedIn and find anyone anytime you want, and pretty much up to date as well, probably more up to date than your own database. So it is now about adding value to the service. And and you get back to the specialist comments that you made, Alan, before. I always saw that the larger high street brands were actually going to turn into big machines, but without a specialist service. And it feels like that's what's happening now. Whereas a lot of the quality people that actually ended up coming out of some of these big companies, Hayes completely culled the middle management level and took everyone out. But a lot of them went and set up their own boutique agencies, and they're now doing very, very well, because they've pulled their skill set back in and they're adding value to what the client needs. So there's a bit of an evolution going on there as well. But as far as data is concerned, yeah, people have got to get with the play. It's a different world out there now to what it was.
I can offer an example, Alan, of a client I'm working with, of an agency who's trying to add value, and they're starting with their website, because a lot of recruitment agency websites are pretty awful. No offense, guys. Sorry, our client base again. But they are improving, and what the plan is, or what we're working with them on, is instead of it being a recruitment agency website, it becomes, they're very niche, they're specialists executive company. Instead of being a recruitment agency website, it becomes an industry website for their niche. Yeah, the recruitment bit is just on the side. That's a little bit, that's how they make their money, but that's on the side. And that's how they're going to add their value. And then it comes back down to the data and having a good technology front end website provider talking to the CRM. And then you can start doing some fantastic things. You can have candidates logging in, clients logging in, that information going straight to CRM, coming back out again, presenting salary reports, presenting market maps, integrating video technology. You can now target content based on the person's profile who's visiting your website. And that profile will be in your CRM as well. And every time they visit, your CRM updates. What are they looking at? Not what jobs they're looking at exactly, but the content they're looking at. And then the information changes on the site. So you provide this website in a niche, this would work well. And any niche agency could do it. And so obviously some areas are like marketing and sales. There's a proliferation of websites, content blogs, and so forth. But there are other smaller niches where it can work really well, where the CRM and the website can work together well. So we're experimenting with a bit of that with one of our clients at the moment. But that's an example of where a 15, 20 user agency could completely outflank their competitors and of course, sorry, I'm going on, but of course, through all of that, through people registering to get your content, access these reports, download these specialist white papers, you're getting leads right back into your CRM. every sign-up's a lead, every person's a potential client or candidate, and then it's a matter of talking to your consultants and asking them to start engaging with these people.
So I'm going to take the opposite side of the fence here just for a moment, because we need to understand. I think someone said earlier that maybe one of our issues is that we've only got, say, 10% or more of the agencies are actually doing that sort of stuff, Louis, that are willing to step up and do that. Where we've got another 18,000 agencies who are still doing it the old-fashioned way. They're owner-operated. They don't want to spend any money on anything other than having a guy sit there on a phone, 8 hours a day, pounding the phones. And we've had that debate in one of our shows in the past about, should a recruiter actually ever leave the building? So I think we have some challenge where the enlightened will take hold of Jack's tech, Christine's tech. They'll use Broadbean's database, data information integration. They'll use their CRM from Colleague, and they'll be leading the pack, and they'll be right out there. And it seems in a sense that those are the people that we're always talking about, because that's what we all want to talk about. We love this let's go change the world kind of approach to recruitment. And yet we've got 50,000 recruiters out there today that are still sitting there with a CV in their hand, right? And maybe email is our newest tech. They're not even using SMS, as one of our viewers has brought up. I don't know. Is it just because as owner operators we're afraid to spend any money? We're just so focused on making the placement?
I think it's all about the change piece, Alan. I think it's more about, business change has been a subject in corporates for 10, 20 years now. It's been a long, a same sort of adoption of marketing principles as what's been happening with business change. And I think recruitment agencies, for the very nature of them and the 20-year history of recruitment agencies as we know it in the UK, they've not needed to be business change orientated because they were the change. They were the fact that in-house recruitment models didn't work, or businesses wanted to grow but couldn't attract the right people. And I think the sort of cycle that we've now got, where we've got businesses and organizations who are doing it faster and more effectively, they've got more tools at the touch. They can basically harness all of this effectiveness, if you like, to get those candidates to their businesses, to grow their business. And recruitment agencies are still kind of going, well, the world's a big enough place. We've still got quite a number of clients on our books. The recruitment model doesn't work for 80% of our clients, so we'll always have a job. And it's not until that sort of critical mass, if you like, or if we get to the tipping point where agencies have proved that they can do things better in a different way, and it is fundamentally different, then I don't think there is going to be a revolution as such. I think it's more like Christine's point, where it's just continued evolution, and it'll be slow because there's no real pressure to change.
Yeah, the pressure has to come from the back, come onto the back pocket. So they have to be losing money almost to want to change. And if a client turned around to a recruitment agency and said, I'm sorry, I won't deal with you unless you're using video interviewing, then there's a real reason to change, because they're not going to win the business off that client. And I think that's the way that the recruitment industry has been fueled through KPIs that are attached to money instead of KPIs that are attached to values. And that until that changes, I don't think, unless it changes, I really don't think it's going to be a generational thing almost.
I think educating these people, like you've got a paper CV in your hand, you're spending probably around £600 a month on printing, and that's for a small agency. Why don't you put that 600 quid into technology? That is educating people in that kind of concept. So if I go into an agency and I see a pile of paper CVs, I get really annoyed, and they're using a spreadsheet. It just shows that you're not scared to use the money, because you're sitting there and that ink is not cheap, and you're printing and printing and printing. Put that onto line. What about you lose those CVs, or you move office? It's all that kind of concept that they need to be educated in. Get yourself a good CRM system. Get rid of paper for one. Start there. That's what I'd say.
Well, yeah, and it seems to me, Jack, if you just give Louis the names of those agencies you go to, they might be able to help out.
Well, with my data, I've got 20 here that I can help you with.
See, Louis, this is our referral show. We didn't know that.
We've got about another technology as well.
Yeah, that's true. We got about 5 minutes to go, guys. One of the questions, and I think we've talked about how there's a lot of new stuff, and it's a tech in our normal life. And Christine, I think certainly for you, I mean, YouTube videos, you can't even keep track of how many are going up every minute via YouTube or Instagram or whatever platform people are doing with their mobile phones, with their pads. They're just shoving content out. So we're using this stuff every single day, all the time. And then we say, well, why don't you use this video technology in the office? And you just get the, oh my God, I couldn't possibly do that. So how do you get your prospects over that hump?
I find the ones that already are over that hump, and they're the leaders, unfortunately. With any new technology, there are leaders and there are followers, and there is a period in time and there's a bell curve that happens where, and you have, if you look at that technology bell curve, which is a classic and a favorite of mine, you know that at the beginning you're going to have to just hunt around until you can find all of those guys, get them together, and then get them to be your champions to get the word out, because it does work, but it's hard work. I can't really say anything more than that. It's just hard work.
Community that works.
But we're already there on the tech bell curve. Sorry, Jack. The iPhone, because I put up a slide about the evolution of some tech, and it scares me sometimes. But the iPhone is now 8 years old. Okay, so it's not new tech anymore. This is old tech already. And yet, that ability of us to take on and use that tech, I think, is still a challenge. I'm going to use that as your final theme for the three of you, and even Louis. So, final words of wisdom for our audience: is the tech revolution or evolution here, or is it still around the corner? Jack?
It's around the corner. It is around the corner, yeah.
Yeah, you think it's around the corner, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's around the corner.
Around the corner or next door?
Well, it could be next door. It could be up in the loft. You don't know, do you?
Claire, what do you think?
For me, I think it's always going to be round the corner, but it's that never-ending road. I think it's going to be a real slow burn. I don't think we're going to have a whiz-bang, wake up tomorrow and it's here.
Claire, you better go and find some more wood.
Run out of metaphors.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, for
No,
me,
my surname, Jack.
I'm the same as Claire. For me, it's an evolutionary thing. It takes time. It takes time for people to get their heads around. So we're in for the long haul. Let's put it that way. But
all right.
it's exciting.
And one way for us looking at that long haul, we're going to get the plug in for Louise now, the UK Recruiter Technology Showcase events tomorrow in London. And I guess one way it would to show is that Louise has got about 20 companies that are coming to showcase their technology. There's never a shortage of people that have got some new tech or even old tech that they want to share and discuss with prospects. And we're expecting a pretty fun day there tomorrow. Louis, I'm going to kick it back to you. We got about a minute and a half left for your wrap up. And what are we doing next?
I really enjoyed today's show. Great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Next, Hangout. Go onto colleague blog in a few days. I'll get some information on there. But it's focusing on inbound recruitment, inbound marketing, and we're teaming up with the MARAs, the Marketing and Advertising Recruitment Awards. I think they're called something else now, but Simon Lewis will be on the show. We're going to have some recruitment agencies on the show as well, talking to us. But anyone who's signed up, who's watching now, will get some information via email anyhow, so look out for that. We'll be following up today's event in the next few weeks, today's Hangout, with a slide share with a transcript of the show. And Louise, as always, from UK Recruiter, will put a little blog piece together linking to some useful resources and getting everyone's contact details on there. So that'll be sent out to you guys as well. But I think that's it, Alan. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you all for watching.
Yeah, and a good shout out to the people on the webinar jam. Louis, we had a lot going there. John, Simon, Peter, Sarah. Simon and Peter were having a lot of conversation, actually. And a couple other folks. Connor was there. It's great to see that we're generating those kinds of conversations, that some of which you and I engaged with them on, some of them we just turned them loose. And to our three guests, great to meet you, Christine, and Jack for the first time, and Claire, it's always a pleasure seeing you, as you know. And apologies again from Stephen O'Donnell, who wanted to be here but had a family thing he had to go take care of. So we'll get him again in the future. Great show today, guys. Really appreciate it.
Bye.
Thanks,